Greetings, and welcome to another video from odooclass.com. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a way where we can do automated backups and schedule them so that they can run as frequently as you choose, and then also, in addition to that, create an FTP service and hook up to an FTP service so that you can offload these backups to another server, because obviously just making the backup, that's really just a first step. Then after the backup is made, you're going to want something to automatically push those backups to another site, or another server, preferably one that is not at the same location, just for safety and redundancy purposes. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a module, and if I go here, I'm going to use this so that we can use a web browser here. If you go to apps.odoo.com, and what we'll do is you'll notice there's here at their app store now you can just type in backup, and the backup system that we're going to use is this database auto backup, and let's take a look at it here. I believe this is the best. Yeah, this is the one we're going to use. So you'll see that the technical name's auto backup. There are other ones available. They'll have some of the same features, but this is the one we're going to look at today. So now you can click and download this, and it'll save it in your web browser. If you're using Windows, it's going to work exactly the same way. But I'm going to show you a little trick that I use when I'm working off of a like an SSH connection or through a command line terminal. So naturally, if I hit download, it'll bring up this download here, and you can extract this out, using the Windows method. I'm going to show you a method that's probably a little more typical if you're working with a Ubuntu server. So what I can do is I can actually right-click this and say copy link location. Okay, and so now I have Odoo running here already, and I have a terminal open. So you're gonna, have Odoo running somewhere. That's part of installing something like this. And so what I'm going to do here is just use this terminal here to show you how this works. I'm going to cancel it, and you can see I have a directory here called Odoo 8, where my installation is that we're going to work with. So now, how do I get this add-on in? But I mean, it's something that most people probably watching this video already know how to do. I'm just showing you a way that I sometimes do something like this. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want to download it directly into this directory because it's just going to make things kind of messy. So instead, I'm going to say make a directory, and I'm going to call it auto backup, and hit enter. Now, that's going to give me a place to just basically store and unpack these files. So I'm going to change into that directory. And one of the nice things about doing it this way, notice I'm still in my Odoo user group, meaning that I'm actually downloading this as the same Ubuntu user that I'm going to be using to run Odoo. So I don't have to worry about permissions. It's going to already have the correct permissions when I do the download. So now, how do I get the file? I can type wget like this, and then I can right click and paste that string in. And I don't need this little after the parameter thing. I just need it to end in zip. So this is the actual path name. Now, what I don't want, and this would work, but it'd just be kind of cumbersome, is I don't want this really long cryptic file name. You can see right here, this file name would be really painful to have to type it out and use it to unpack things. And there's a little trick here. You can just type -o and then give it whatever name you choose. And so I'm going to say auto backup. I'm not sure why O is the switch for this, but O will basically set it. Now, when I do this, I'm actually going to get an error, and you'll see this when it happens, that it actually says unable to locally verify the issuer's authority, connect insecurely using no check certificate. So because the certificate used by apps.odoo.com is failing the certificate authority that's available. I need to add this switch. So I just have to go up to the end. I hit the up arrow, by the way, in case you are new to Ubuntu. I can stretch this out a little bit too. I forgot that it's not going to redraw it though. I just have to type the no. Whoa, that really messed things up. I'm going to just hit Control C and then hit up arrow again. All right, so I'm going to just hit -- no check certificate. So this just says not just to ignore the fact that their authenticity of their actual certificate for the SSH is just not valid, or at least Ubuntu's not seeing them as valid. I think I had the same issue though in Windows. So it's just the way it is. So if I do this no check certificate, that's going to let it go ahead and download, and you'll see it does the download here. And if I type ls now, that auto_backup that you see right here, that's the zip file. Now I've already got the zip, or I should say, the zip package that you would use to unpack this. I've already got that installed, but if you don't have that installed, you should be able to install that with sudo apt-get install and then 7z, because that's the name of the zip package that I'm using. And so you'll see here when I type it, if that you would have to actually be in your real user command. You couldn't type that command here while you're already logged in Odoo. But this is something that you could always just Google, but you might need to install this 7z zip package to unpack this zip file. And then E I use for extract, and then I do auto backup. So this 7ze auto backup is going to extract the zip file. And you'll see that there it did all the extracting right there. And now we actually have by ls, this is the actual file that we're going to, or all the files and the directory. We're going to move this into the add-ons folder now that it's all unpacked. And I could have done this in the add-ons folder, but and I think if somebody's doing this every day and you're real comfortable with all your commands in Ubuntu, you probably feel a little more safe doing it that way. But I tend to, especially when I'm downloading new stuff and unpacking it, what directories it's going to get in, I usually do that off to the side, because the worst thing that can happen is you download something and it ends up opening it up inside of your directories or inside of your installation in a way you don't expect or don't want, and it can clutter things up and make it real messy to clean up. So this way I know I have everything as it's packaged needs to be before I move it into my Odoo installation. So to do that, I'm going to just one thing I can do is I can use rm for remove, and I can remove auto backup now. I can remove the file I downloaded because I've expanded it. And this is kind of optional. It doesn't really hurt to have it in there. But I'm going to go ahead and remove it because we simply don't need it in there. We just need the files from it. Now I'm going to do a cd double dot, and that moves me back a direction. And now that I'm in this direction, if I hit ls, you'll see in here the auto backup folder. And we essentially just need to move that or make a copy of it and put it into add-ons. And so I'm just going to do that real quick. So I do copy R, -R means everything in the directory. I'm going to do auto backup. And then all I have to do is just do a space add-ons. And that's going to that's a Ubuntu command. It's going to copy that directory into the add-ons folder. And so we can verify that it's there by going into add-ons. I'm going to do it this way, add-ons and auto backup. I'm just going to go right into it and do another ls and see all the files in there. So it's ready now to install. Should be ready to install. So I'm going to go back out 2 directories. I backed out of both those directories. And now I'm going to start up the server. I can just start it up. I don't have to do any special commands here, as we're just testing out this backup server locally. So there we are, server's running, and I'm going to create a new database. We'll call this Odoo 8 backup test, and we'll just put in a quick password and we'll create the database here. Okay, so we get our standard screen to install the different apps, and we can go ahead right now and just jump right into the backup. If I type backup, we'll see here we got a database auto backup, and if I click on it, we can see right here, just so we want to verify that, that this is the right backup that we just installed, auto backup. I'm going to go ahead and hit install, and what will happen is, I expected this error, is that for the FTP part, you'll notice down here it says this module needs PYS FTP to automatically write backups to the FTP server, FTP through SFTP. Then it even tells you here, please install PYS FTP on your system, and it gives you the actual command. So I can actually even just copy that if I choose and go back to here. Now, one of the tricks I'll do sometimes, because I don't want to have to go in and out of directories and users to do this, if I hit new terminal, you'll notice that I'm automatically logged in as admin user, while in this terminal I've changed over to Odoo so that I could run the so I could run under the Odoo user. So this one I can actually just paste this in, this sudo pip install pys ftp, and it's going to ask me for my password just like it will you. Oh, and we don't have pip installed, so that gives me another thing to install for you. I think I can just do this. Maybe easy install pip. So I don't think we have easy install. It's a sudo easy. Okay, we don't. Alright, I think I found it. Sudo apt-get install python pip. There it is. So there it's found the pip. This is a package we're going to need to install that FTP. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit yes to install that path. And depending on what you're using with Ubuntu, you might already have pip installed. But pip, I don't know all that it does, but I can just consider it like another installer, like apt-get will automatically install things or easy install. Okay, so and this again, that was the command for that, was sudo apt-get install python pip. So you might need to install that first. Now I can just arrow all the way back up till we get back to this again, and now that we have pip installed, we should be able to install the FTP. So that's what this has done, and so it needs this package installed in order to install the auto backup. Okay, so now that that's installed, let's go back and try again. I hit install, and this time we get no errors. It comes back, and you'll notice here now that there is a configure backup link available, and this is where we're going to put in the information on and configure what the things are on the backup. And you'll notice that we can have multiple backups directories as well. And another nice thing about this is you can actually specify alternative databases to backup in these configurations. So you could have one Odoo installation that is running, and apparently, again, test this out as your mileage may vary, but it appears to me from the looks of things that we're going to be able to, in fact, back up multiple databases, all perhaps under one instance of Odoo running. Well, I guess that's probably I might have misspoke because it's clearly operating over port 8069. So in this case, everything kind of comes ready to go for you. Um, uh, you'll notice that this is self-explanatory, and then this backup directory, this is what we're going to be looking at to make sure that our backups are getting written in the proper place. Okay, so now you'll notice here that it says uh, this write to external server with SFTP. That's going to be what we'll configure next. First, we're going to make sure everything's backing up and we're getting reliable backups that we can use automated. And then once we've got that working, then we'll worry about getting those reliable automated backups moved off site to SFTP. So that might even be in another video. Just depends on what it takes to get all this working. But this is kind of like step 2. So we'll leave that for now. And you'll notice that under the help, it's telling us our next steps here. We're going to need to go into settings and look at the scheduled actions and look for the backup scheduler. And that's where it's going to let us configure the frequency of these backups. So like we frequently have to do in order to see these options, we got to go down here and turn on our technical features. And I'm going to do a shift refresh to force it to rebuild the menus for us. We're going to come down here to just what it set us to do under automations and scheduled actions. You'll see that we have a backup scheduler here. And if I click on it, we can see right now that it's set up to have an interval unit of work days. So it's basically set up right now to back up once a day, but only during work days. So I'm going to edit that, and we'll see that we can also change that where you could have it be every day of the week. Like on a website, for example, if you're using Odoo to run a website that takes orders and has e-commerce, you're not just going to back up work days, you're going to back up 24/7. But it's probably not a bad move, depending upon what your requirements are, to back up, maybe every 4 hours or every 8 hours, something. You never, especially if you're in a high volume situation, you just can't afford to lose data. You just can't afford it. So you'll just have to pick the frequency that'll work for your requirements. For testing purposes, we're going to change this to minutes and leave the interval at 1. So it's going to back up right now, and you'll see on the help here it says repeat every X. So every 1 minute it's going to back up. Now this number of calls, you'll notice it says how many times the method is called. So you could create a backup scheduler that would back up something 100 times and then it would stop. It basically just disables itself. But that'd probably be unusual, I would think, to use this option. You'll notice that we have a next execution date, which it's not kind of nice. It sets it way far back for us, so it's going to kickstart the first one no matter what. And then they have this repeat if missed, like if the server gets shut down or something's not running for a certain amount of time and it misses a scheduled backup, this will look back through and say, I need to repeat the backups. And actually it says missed occurrences, and so since it's plural, you'd expect it to do several of them. So if it's missed 3 backups, it's going to back it up 3 times, I would assume, which might be kind of redundant. But and just out of curiosity, you can see here that basically what it's doing is we have a method, an object that it's going to look at, and this is what gets called. So it's going to call that schedule backup. Now, you'll notice that it's not active. So by default, when it installed this, this was not active, so nothing's happening. And what I will do is pull this up so we can watch what's going to happen. So we can actually watch the terminal to see when this executes. So I'm going to save it. It's active now. And we'll just see here in a minute or less that it's going to fire off and try to do this backup. And when it does, there's probably a good chance that we will get an error, and there it is, because we have permission denied to the directory that it's trying to create this directory in. So it's very specific about the path of the backups. So let's look at the configuration of the backup. And so I didn't change that, I just left it the default. But as you can see, it's trying to create this in the root path. Well, the way I have this configured, I don't give the Odoo user access to the root directory, which is what that would mean in order to create this Odoo. So it's trying to create this, but it can't. So what we're going to do is we're going to build this up, and it should look like this. And I'll get rid of that. And so this is going to be dependent upon your own installation. In other words, I can't predict what your server configuration looks like. A lot of Odoo installation they install inside of the opt directory, and I have many Odoo installations on this system. I have a lot, but I run them under the same user because this is just a test server. So, but just to make sure that this path is good, I'm going to use the simple copy and paste approach. So I'm going to copy this and come right into here and just paste this in. I think I might got 2 dashes in front. And it's okay. So I'm coming to the right directory of where my Odoo 8 installation is. Now, what I know is this directory has permissions for this Odoo user, or it should. So the way I can check that, and this is just kind of a nice command to go, I think it's -L. Yeah. So you'll notice when I did this ls-l, it listed out all my directories. So I can see I have an Odoo 8, I have an Odoo master, I have an SAAS, which is kind of like right now the current Odoo 9 release candidate. But they're all under the Odoo user. So what I'm hoping is what I just did by changing the directory to what it is here, that I'm going to have, it's going to automatically for me make inside of this folder a backups directory. So I'm looking for what will hopefully be a backups directory in here. If it doesn't make it, that's okay. I can make it. So we'll see what it does. But now we have you can see the multiple attempts. So there it attempted, there it attempted, there it attempted, and you know what? It looks like it might have ran successfully, because what's going to happen is it's going to run at some point and create an instance of, you know, something here in the log to show us that it's running. And there it goes, right there. Dump DB. There's the service it ran. So we're not getting any errors, we're not getting any problems, but you know, we're going to want to make sure it's there. But according to this, we've dumped out this DB in this format. And so if we go back and look, let's see what we see here. There's a folder now. So notice it's in the list now. There's backups, and it wasn't there before. Oops. And if I change to backups and hit enter and ls, there's our file right there, the dump. Now it's interesting that it said it was a zip file. It said format zip. Maybe it is in that format, but you know, I'm maybe still a little bit biased from Windows, where you know your extensions kind of tell you what file types there are. But this .dump, I always thought was more of a binary format. But you know, just what I want to make sure is make sure it works. So I'm not going to do that in this case just because this is an example, but you know, if for in the real world, when you start using this automated backup system, make sure it works. You know, don't just say, oh, it backed up the file, you know, move on and assume that you know, that just because it backed up this file that that file is actually valid. And in fact, you can see I just did an ls again to make sure that it got another one. So once a minute now, you can see it's all automatic. As long as Odoo's running, you're getting automatic backups. And you know, how easy was that? There's a lot of ways you could make automatic backups. You could create a shell script to run periodically, and there's other ways to create repeating things. But this is kind of an elegant way. It's an easy add-on to have. And plus we have the built-in SFTP part of it too that's going to allow us to hook in you know, with FTP servers as well. So now we got 3 backups. Let's just go in, and so I can show you exactly how this would work. Is you want to go in here to manage databases and hit restore, and you're going to get a browse. Now this is an interesting thing that we should that you're going to have to, you know, figure out on your own system. But you're going to notice that one of the things that's going to happen is we're not going to have access to that backup. So if I go you know, all the way out to this, hit this to get all the way out to the system, and I go to, maybe I will have access, maybe I'll have read access, and I go to 08. Oh wait, I'm sorry, it's Odoo, and then Odoo 8, and then backups, and I can pick. Okay, so there's the backups. I'll pick the latest one and hit open, and we won't know until it tries to read it possibly. And so we'll say test restore, test auto backup restore. So we have a database name, hit restore. And it says could not restore the database. And I would expect that that has everything to do with permissions. This browser's trying to restore from that file, but it doesn't have the right users. Now, one of the things that you could do here, if I do a -L, you'll see what I mean. These are all Odoo users now. So what we can do, and it's kind of a pain, let's see if we can use a slick way to do this. CHON for change owner. We want to do a sudo. And let's make it bigger so we can type this out and see everything. So if I do CHO or sudo and I do a CHO to change the owner, because we want to make it so admin user is the owner of these and not Odoo. So I do that, and I can then say that I want this to be admin user and a colon. Now here's the tricky part, is I don't want to type that whole file out, so we're going to try a little trick. If I just do a 2 and a star in here, does that work? Oh, I need to do SL. How slick is that? So how did that work? Is what I said was it's almost like a regular expression, and if you want to, you can put in brackets like a wild, it's not a wild card, it's what I wanted the first letter to start with. So by putting that brace, the left brace, the 2, and the other brace, what I did was I told it to find all the files that had this 2 in the front, just like that. And if I wanted to, say just for example, if you had a file, and I'm just going to show you guys this real quick because it's just kind of neat. If I make a directory called A, I make a directory B, and I make a directory D. So you'll notice here I got, these are roots because I created them as a sudo. So the only person that has access to these directories are the roots. But just like I changed the user on these, I can go in here and say sudo, change the ownership of them, and now I could say A to B, I want to make them Odoo so the Odoo is the owner. The Odoo user is the owner of the A and B. And it probably was, I could have used a better example for you guys, because this will certainly work. And you'll see now that these are both Odoo. But if I go here and I say, it works the same way like this. Elephant, and I forget my sudo. Elephant sudo make directory far side sudo make directory Greg. So what this means is that you could do it like this. And this will be the last that I'll show you of this idea here. Set Odoo user for all of them that are, say, EL to FA. And so it's actually looking at the first letters here and using this pattern to find everything that'll match. So these two will match, this one won't. Actually it didn't pick up the other one. But you get the idea. Is it, if I wanted to, I guess the right format for that, if I it is just a first letter thing, but it would be like that. And now you'll notice that the E and the F got picked up because of this pattern. It set them to Odoo. Okay, so I'm sorry I got off on that a little bit of a tangent there, but I wanted you to see that. So now let's see if it actually worked. So I can browse, and I can pick up one of these. Need to make sure it was one of the earlier ones, though. So we'll pick up this one. And make sure we got our master password in there. And my Odoo 8 test auto backup and restore. And now it's going, and it's going to be, it says it's restored successfully. Go back to our login. We'll see my many databases in here, and somewhere in there is the one I just made. And now when we log in, this is how we've actually tested it. We've actually tested the restoring of the backup. That's the only way you can make absolutely sure that the backup was successful. So I think that that's a really good place for people that really just want a way to make automated backups. And as you can see, you can schedule them to fire off when you need them to. You learned how to find where to get the application. Remember, you just go to apps.odoo.com and search for backup, and that'll give you the file to download. You saw how to install it. You saw how to set your directory permissions. So if there are any additional questions, let me know. There is, and I don't have an FTP site set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you right here when you hit edit that, like it says, use this with caution. You put in the IP address of your FTP server here, what the username is, what the password is, and then your path to where you want it to go on your external server. And they even have a nice little test there for you to test it. So a little bit outside the scope of this video to set up an FTP server, and then to, all the permissions, everything to copy and do this. This is kind of, I'm going to leave this here. If, however, you're watching this and you want us here at Odoo Class to make a video that shows you how to connect to this FTP server, we can do that. But to be honest with you, it really is just a matter, most of this is going to be on whatever FTP server you're using. There's hundreds of different FTP servers out there that you can configure. Once you've configured that FTP server, simply fill the credentials in here and hit test your connection. If that's failing, it's not working for you, look at the troubleshooting tips for FTP connections, and especially permissions and your firewall. That would probably be another kind of thing that you'd have to look at. So a little bit outside the scope to show you all those things, because it's kind of more of a networking server type thing. But again, if you need a video to help you walk through this, or you try and struggle to set up your offsite FTP server, let us know, and we'll create a video for that as well. So I hope this has been a help. Remember, backups are real important, and so this video, it maybe makes it a little easier if you're sitting out there and you're watching this and you're running an Odoo site and you don't have it backing up for you automatically. This is a good way to configure everything. So with that said, let me know if there's any other videos that you'd like to see, and thanks for watching.